Marley was dead to begin with. There was no doubt whatever about that. The register of his funeral was signed by the clergyman, the clerk, the undertaker, and the chief mourner. Scrooge signed it, and Scrooge's name was good upon change for anything he chose to put his hand to. Old Marley was dead as a doornail. Scrooge knew he was dead. Of course he did. Scrooge and Marley were partners. I don't know how many years. He was a tight-fisted hand at the grindstone. Scrooge, a squeezing, wrenching, grasping, scraping, clutching, covetous old sinner, secret and self-contained. Once upon a time, of all the good days in the year, on Christmas Eve, old Scrooge sat busy in his counting house. It was a cold, bleak, biting evening, foggy withal, and he could hear the people in the court outside go wheezing, up and down, beating their hands upon their breasts and stamping their feet upon the pavement to warm them. The door of Scrooge's counting house was open, that he might keep his eye upon the clerk, Bob Cratchit, who was in a cold and dismal little cell beyond the work at his ledgers.
29, 9 and carry the 2, 13, 17, 7 and carry the 1, and...
Close the door, Cratchit. Shut out that infernal noise.
Yes, Mr. Scrooge.
Confound their impudence. Hello, Cratchit.
Yes, Mr. Scrooge.
You'll stop at Fothergill's on your way home tonight and collect that 17 shillings and 6 he's owed me since Michaelmas. And tell him I shall have the constable over there if he does not pay it at once.
Well, sir, Mr. Fothergill's wife has been ill, sir.
What do I care about his wife? I want my 17 and 6.
I just thought it being Christmas.
Christmas.
Merry Christmas, Bob.
Oh, Mr. Fred, well, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you, Uncle. Merry Christmas, Uncle.
Bah, humbug.
Humbug? Christmas a humbug, Uncle? Now, I'm sure you don't mean that.
I do. Merry Christmas. What right have you to be merry? What reason have you to be merry? You're poor enough.
Well, come then, Uncle. I have you to be dismal. You're late enough.
Bah, humbug.
Don't be cross, Uncle.
What else can I be when I live in such a world of fools? What's Christmas to you but a time for paying bills without money? Merry Christmas. A time for finding yourself a year older and not an hour richer. If I could work my will, every idiot who goes about with Merry Christmas on his lips should be boiled with his own pudding and buried with a stake of his own holly through his heart.
Uncle.
Nephew, keep Christmas in your own way and let me keep it in mine.
Keep it, but you don't keep it.
Let me leave it alone then. What do you want, nephew? A Christmas gift, I have no doubt.
I came to wish you a Merry Christmas, Uncle.
A Merry Christmas. Much good Merry Christmas, do you? What much good has it ever done you?
There are many things from which I have derived good, but which I have not profited, I dare say, Uncle. Christmas among the rest. But I have always thought of Christmas time as a good time, a kind, forgiving, charitable, pleasant time. And therefore before, Uncle, though it has never put a scrap of gold or silver in my pocket, I believe it has done me good, and will do me good. And I say, God bless it.
God bless Christmas, hurrah!
Let me hear another sound from you there, Bob Cratchit, and you'll lose your Christmas by losing your situation. As to you, nephew, I wonder you don't go into Parliament. You talk enough nonsense.
Don't be angry, Uncle. I want nothing from you. I ask nothing of you. Why can't we be friends?
Good afternoon.
I'm sorry you feel that way. Well, I've tried. A Merry Christmas to you, Uncle.
Good afternoon.
And a Happy New Year, too.
Humbug, humbug.
Merry Christmas to you, Bob, and the missus, and to Tiny Tim.
Thank you, Mr. Fred. Same to you, sir. Good day, sir.
Good day, Bob. Merry Christmas, Uncle Ebenezer.
What a nonsense flummery. Talking of Christmas and not a 6 to jingle against another in his trousers pocket. You there, Bob Cratchit, you there!
Yes, sir?
What are you doing in there?
Oh, I was only putting a bit of coal on the fire, Mr. Scrooge. Seeing it's so cold in here, sir.
You put that coal back in the scuttle!
Yes, sir.
Fire indeed. I can tell you, if you use coal at that rate, you and I'll be soon parting company, Bob Cratchit. Do you understand that? Many a young fellow like your situation, you know.
I'm sorry, sir. My fingers were getting a little stiff with the cold.
Then put on your mittens.
Merry Christmas! Merry Christmas!
And there's someone at the door. See who it is.
Yes, sir.
Merry Christmas, sir.
Merry Chri- yes, sir.
This is the firm of Scrooge and Marley.
Yes, sir.
I should like to see the head of the firm, if I may.
Oh, very good, sir. Step this way, please.
What is it?
A gentleman to see you, Mr. Scrooge.
Huh?
Have I the pleasure of addressing Mr. Scrooge or Mr. Marley?
Yeah, Molly's been dead these 7 years tonight.
Oh,
And I'm Scrooge. Though I doubt that'll be any pleasure to you, sir.
I'm sure it will. Now, Mr. Scrooge, at this season of the year, it's only fitting that we who are more fortunate should raise a fund to buy the poor some meat and drink and means of warmth. You may not believe it, sir, but many thousands are in want of common necessities, and many hundreds of thousands are in want of comforts, sir.
Are there no prisons?
There are plenty of prisons, sir.
And the workhouses? They're still in operation, I trust?
I wish I could say they are not, but they are, sir.
The treadmill and the poor law in full vigor, then?
Both very busy, sir.
I'm glad to hear that. I was afraid from what you said at first something had occurred to stop them in the usual course. Now, sir, what do you want with me?
Well, Mr. Scrooge, a few of us are endeavoring to raise a fund for the poor and destitute. What shall I put you down for?
Nothing.
You wish to be anonymous, sir?
I wish to be left alone. I don't make merry at Christmas time, and I can't afford to help make idle people merry. I have to support the establishments that take care of the poor. They cost enough. Let those who are badly off go there.
Well, many can't go there, sir, and many would rather die.
Then let them do so, and decrease the surplus population. Besides, how do I know that's the truth?
You might know it someday, Mr. Scrooge.
Not my business. It's enough for a man to understand his own business and not to interfere with other people's. Mine occupies me constantly. Good afternoon, sir. Cratchit, show this gentleman out. Cratchit!
Yes, sir. This way, sir, please. Oh, excuse me, sir. I couldn't help overhearing. I would like to contribute 3 pence. It's all I can afford. But there are others in worse situations than I.
Oh, you're a generous fellow. I wish I might say the same of your employer.
Good day, sir.
Good day. Merry Christmas.
Good afternoon, sir, and a Merry Christmas. 15, 24, 31, 1, and carry the 1, 3, 17, 22, 33, 3, and carry the 3, 4, 7, 8,
Cratchit!
12, 15.
Cratchit!
Yes, sir.
Cratchit, it's too late. You two for you to have to go to Father Gale's. He'll be closed up for Christmas like these other fools. We may as well close up this place now.
Yes, sir. 'Tis getting a little dark. Hard to see the figures.
I suppose you want the entire day tomorrow, Cratchit.
If quite convenient, sir.
It's not convenient. And it's not fair. If I was to stop half a crown of your wages for you, you'd think yourself ill-used, I'll be bound.
Well, sir,
And yet, you don't think me ill-used when I pay a day's wages for no work?
it's only once a year, sir.
Yeah, once a year. Once a year indeed. A fine excuse for picking a man's pocket every 25th of December. And I suppose you must have the whole day. We'll see that you're here all the earlier the next morning. Do you understand?
Oh, I will, sir, I will. Well, good night, sir. Good night, and good night. Merry Christmas, Mr. Scrooge.
Bah!
The office was closed in a twinkling, and Bob Cratchit, with the long ends of his white comforter dangling below his waist, went down a slide on Cornhill 20 times in honor of it being Christmas, and then ran home to Camden Town as hard as he could pelt to play with his family at the Blind Man's Buff. Scrooge, on the other hand, took his melancholy dinner in his usual melancholy tavern, and having read all the newspaper and spent the rest of the evening with his banker's book and went home to his dismal house, the yard was so dark that even Scrooge, who knew its every stone, had to grope with his hands. The fog and the frost hung about the black old gateway of the house darkness. It was cheap, and Scrooge liked it. Before he shut his heavy door, he walked through the rooms and see that all was right. Sitting room, bedroom, lumber room, all as they should be. Nobody under the table, nobody under the sofa. A small fire in the grate of his bedroom, spoon and basin ready, and a little saucepan of gruel upon the hob. Nobody under the bed, nobody in the closet. Closed his door and locked himself in, double-locked himself in. Then took off his cravat and put on his dressing gown and slippers and his nightcap, and sat down before the fire to take his gruel. It was a very low fire indeed. Nothing on such a bitter night, not even enough to kindle a glow of night in the cheerless room. Scrooge stretched his numb fingers over the wretched fire. Then he saw something that made him draw them back. Slowly, the meager embers dissolved into astonishing eyes and dissolved into a face, a ghostly face, one that Scrooge recognized as the face of Marley, his partner, dead these 7 years. It was not angry or ferocious, but looked at Scrooge as Marley used to look, with ghostly spectacles turned up and its ghostly forehead. The hairs were curious, stirred like flames blown from a chimney draft, and through the death-cold eyes, Scrooge saw buttons on the back of his coat.
Humbug. Humbug. Humbug?
Scrooge got up and walked away from the fire. As he turned, his glance happened to rest upon a bell, a disused bell that hung in the corner of the room. It was with great astonishment and with strange, inexplainable dread as he looked over and saw the bell begin to swing, slowly at first. It was the same face that he had seen in the fire. Marley's face and Marley. Marley's body came straight at him through the door, a body pale as the bluish smoke that comes out of the chimney on a cold day, a body so transparent that Scrooge, looking through his waistcoat, could see his watch in his waistcoat pocket. The chain as he drew was clasped in his middle. It was long and wound about him like a trail. It was made of cash boxes, keys, padlocks, and heavy purses, wrought in steel. Even now, Scrooge would not believe his eyes. The ghost advanced towards him.
Ebenezer Scrooge, Ebenezer Scrooge.
Marley, what do you want with me?
Much.
Who are you?
Ask me who I was.
Who were you then? You're particular for a ghost?
In life, I was your partner, Jacob Marley.
Jacob Marley? But you're dead. You died 7 years ago this very night.
You do not believe in me then?
I do not.
Why do you doubt your senses?
Well, because a little thing affects them. A slight disorder of the stomach makes them cheats. You may be an undigested bit of beef, a blot of mustard, a crumb of cheese, a fragment of an underdone potato. There may be more gravy than grave about you, whatever you are. Humbug. I tell you, humbug.
At this, the spirit taking the bandage off from around its head, as if it were too warm to wear indoors, its lower jaw dropped upon its breast.
Man of the worldly mind, do you believe in me now?
I do, Jacob. I do. Why do you walk the earth? Why do you come to me, Jacob?
It is required of every man that the spirit within him should walk abroad among his fellow men and travel far and wide to witness what it cannot share, but might have shared on earth and turn to happiness.
Tell me, Jacob, what is that chain you wear around you?
I wear the chain I forged in life, cash boxes, keys, padlocks, ledgers, purses. I made it link by my own free will. Is its pattern strange to you, Ebenezer? Yours was as heavy and as long as this 7 years ago, and you've labored on it since, Ebenezer Scrooge.
Jacob. Oh, Jacob Marley, tell me more. Speak comfort to me, Jacob.
I have none to give, Ebenezer. No rest, no peace, incessant torture of remorse.
But you are always a good man of business, Jacob.
Business. Mankind was my business. Charity, mercy, benevolence. They were all my business. The dealings of my trade but were a drop of water in the comprehensive ocean of my business.
Jacob.
Hear me, Ebenezer Scrooge. My time is nearly gone.
I will. I will, Jacob. But don't be hard on me. Speak to me, Jacob, but please don't be flowery.
I'm here tonight to warn you that you have yet a chance of hope of escaping my fate, Ebenezer.
You were always a good friend to me, Jacob. Thank you. And go on. Go on, Jacob.
Listen to me, Ebenezer. You will be haunted by 3 spirits.
I think I'd rather not.
Without their visits, Ebenezer Scrooge, you cannot hope to shun the path that I tread. Expect the first tomorrow when the bell tolls 1. Expect the second on the next night at the same hour. The third upon the next night. Look to see me no more, and look that, for your own sake, you remember what has passed between us.
Marley! Jacob Marley!
Scrooge awoke. He was lying on his bed fully dressed, when suddenly the curtains of his bed were drawn aside, and Scrooge found himself face to face with an unearthly visitor who drew them, as close as it is to you as I am to you. It was a strange figure, like a child, yet not so like a child, like an old man. Its hair, which hung about its neck and down its back, was white as with age, and yet the face had not a wrinkle in it, and the tenderness bloom was on the skin. The arms were long and muscular, the hands the same, as if it were of uncommon strength. Its dress was the purest white, trimmed with summer flowers. It held a branch of fresh green holly in its hand. But the strangest thing about it was that from the crown of its head sprang a clear jet of light by which all was visible, and with a doubtless the occasion of its using in its dullest moments, a great extinguisher for the cap, which is now held under its arm.
Ebenezer Scrooge, Ebenezer Scrooge.
Are you the spirit whose coming was foretold to me?
I am.
Who and what are you?
I am the ghost of Christmas past.
Long past?
No, your past.
What business brings you here?
Your
what do you
wealth?
want of me?
Your welfare, Ebenezer Scrooge. Rise and walk with me.
Oh, no, not the window. I'm mortal, I'll fall down.
Bear but a touch of my hand, there, upon your heart, and you shall be upheld in more than this. Come, follow me. Let's go.
They stood upon an open cemetery roads filled with fields either hand. The city had entirely vanished. The darkness and the mist had vanished with it, for it was clear, cold winter day, with snow upon the ground. They walked along the road. Scrooge began to recognize every gate, every post, every tree, until a little market town appeared in the distance with its bridge, its church, and winding river. Some shaggy ponies were now seen trotting towards them, with boys on their backs or in their sleighs. And all these boys were in great spirits and shouted to each other that they were happy, shouting through the broad fields until they were so full of music that the crisp air laughed to hear it. And there stood old Scrooge, dressing gown and slippers and nightcap, on the hill, and beside him, Spirit of Christmas Past. And now the Spirit spoke again.
Not all the boys and girls were singing on that Christmas day, were they, Ebenezer Scrooge? See the bleak building over there?
That building? I was a boy there.
Do you recollect the way?
I could walk it blindfold.
Strange, you have forgotten it for so many years. Come, let us go closer. Look through the window into this cold, barren room. What do you see, Ebenezer Scrooge?
I see a boy.
A solitary child, neglected by his friends, sitting alone, a book open before him.
Yes, I see. I know that boy. I was lonely. Poor boy.
Your lip is trembling, Scrooge. And what's that on your cheek?
It's nothing. Nothing. I wish, but it's too late now.
What is the matter?
Nothing. There was a boy singing a Christmas carol at my door last night. I should like to have given him something, that's all.
That is all? Come, Ebenezer Scrooge. Let us see another Christmas. You know this place, Ebenezer?
Know it? This is the counting house where I was apprenticed.
Listen.
Hello. Choose your partners.
And it's my old master. Oh, bless his heart. My old master alive again. And then his clerks, so full of joy on Christmas Eve.
Advance and retire. Hold hands with your partner. Bow and curtsy. Corkscrew. Thread the needle and back to your places.
Look, Scrooge. Look at that carefree young man with the light heart and the gay smile. Do you recognize him, Ebenezer?
Yes.
What is the matter, Ebenezer?
Nothing particular.
Something, I think.
No. Only, I should like to have been able to say a word or two to my clerk, Bob Cratchit. That's all.
Hold hands with your partner. Bow, advance and retire. Bow and curtsy. Thread the needle.
My time grows short, and we have yet another journey to make.
Where now?
Come.
Again, Scrooge saw himself in a room that was vaguely familiar. He was an older man, a man in his prime of his life. And he was not alone, but sat by the side of the fair young girl. There were tears in her eyes.
It matters little, Ebenezer, to you. Very little, I know. Another idol has displaced me. And if it can cheer and comfort you in time to come, as I would have tried to do, I've no just cause to grieve.
What idol has displaced you?
A golden one.
Belle, listen to me. There's nothing the world so hard on as poverty, and yet nothing it pretends to condemn so much as the pursuit of wealth.
The world again? You fear the world too much, Ebenezer.
Belle, have I changed towards you?
When we were engaged, we were both poor.
Was it better than Belle? Was it better to be poor?
Better at least to be happy. You're changed. You're another man then.
I was a boy. Do you blame me because I've grown wiser? Have I ever tried to break our engagement?
In words? No, never.
In what then?
In a changed nature, in an altered spirit, in everything that made my love any value in your sight. So I release you from your promise.
Oh, Belle. Belle, I love you still.
Oh, at first it may cause you pain to lose me, a very brief pain, but soon it will be dim, like a half-remembered dream, an unprofitable dream. You'll be glad to be awake from such a dream. May you be happy in the life you have chosen, Ebenezer, for the love of him you once were.
Spirit is enough. Show me no more.
These were the shadows of the things that have been, that they are what they are. Do not blame me.
No more, no more!
One shadow more. Come.
The relentless ghost pinned him in both his arms and forced him to observe what happens next. They were in a room, not very large or handsome, but full of comfort. All around them, the voices of children talking and laughing, and before the winter fire sat a beautiful young girl, so like the last that Scrooge believed it was the same. Until he saw her, the girl had been betrothed to a now a handsome middle-aged woman, sitting with her husband at their own fireside.
Do you see this man, Ebenezer Scrooge? This man might have been you, and that girl might have been your daughter, Ebenezer Scrooge. She might have called you father. She might have been a springtime in the haggard winter of your life.
Spirit, let me go. Show me no more.
Listen while they speak, Ebenezer.
Belle, I saw an old friend of yours today.
Who was it?
Guess.
How can I? Oh, I know. Mr. Scrooge.
Mr. Scrooge it was. I passed his office window. It wasn't shuttered, and there was a candle inside, so I couldn't help seeing him. His partner lies at the point of death, I hear. And there Scrooge sat, all alone, quite alone in the world, I do believe.
Spirit, remove me. Haunt me no more. Leave me. Take me back. Take me back.
In his anguish, Scrooge began to struggle with the ghost of Christmas past. The light of its crown of its head burned high and bright. Scrooge, in a last desperate effort, tore the extinguisher cap from its hand, and by a sudden action, pressed it down upon its head. And Scrooge was conscious and being exhausted and overcome with irresistible drowsiness, and further, of being in his own bedroom. He gave the cap a parting squeeze in which his hands relaxed and had barely time to reel in bed before he sank into a heavy sleep. Then stroke of one awakened him and sat bolt upright in his bed. This holiday season, the students of the ICHS Performing Arts Pathway and Drama Club are spreading the spirit of giving by donating our advertisement fee for A Christmas Carol to the urban mission of Steubenville. We love our community and are committed to helping those less fortunate. If you'd like to join us in supporting this incredible organization, a link is provided in the video description. Merry Christmas and enjoy the show. On the stroke of one, Scrooge had awakened suddenly and had sat bolt upright in his own bed. He remembered the words of Marley's ghost and wondered from which direction the second specter would appear. He drew aside the curtains and established a sharp lookout all around the bed. At that moment, nothing between a baby and a rhinoceros would have astonished him very much. Now, being prepared for almost anything, he was not by any means prepared for nothing, and consequently, when no shape appeared, he was taken with a violent fit of trembling. 5 minutes. 10 minutes, a quarter past of an hour went by, yet nothing came, and all this time he sat upon the bed with his nightcap upon his head, the very core in the center of a blaze of ruddy light which streamed upon it being only light this was more alarming than a dozen ghosts. As he was powerless to make out what it meant, he began to think that the source of this ghostly light might be in the adjourning room, from whence the farther tracing it. He got up softly and shuffled his slippers to the door. It was his own sitting room, there was no doubt about that, but it had undergone a surprising transformation. The walls and the ceiling were so hung with living green that it looked a perfect grove, from every part of which bright gleaming berries glistened, and such a mighty blaze went roaring up the chimney as he had never known in Scrooge's time, or for many a winter season gone. Heaped up on the floor to form a kind of throne were turkeys, geese, game, poultry, geat, joints of meat, sucking pigs, long wreathings of sausage, mince pies, plum puddings, barrels of oysters, and red-hot chestnuts, and seething bowls of punch that made the chamber dim with their delicious steam. And in easy state upon this couch there sat a jolly giant, glorious to see, who bore a glowing torch in shape not unlike Plentyhorn, and held it up high to shed its light on Scrooge as he became peeping around the door.
Come in, Ebenezer Scrooge, and know me better, man.
You're?
I am the ghost of Christmas present. Look upon me. You've never seen the likes of me before.
Spirit, conduct me where you will. I went forth last time on compulsion and learnt a lesson which is working now. If tonight you have anything to teach me, let me profit by it.
Touch my robe, Ebenezer Scrooge. Touch my robe.
The room vanished, so did the fire. The ruddy glow, the hour of the night vanished. Sunlight brushed them as they streamed through the clear morning air. The second specter flew at a more leisurely speed, and Scrooge had time to observe people from below, him shoveling snow on the city roofs, calling out to one another from the parapets, and now them pelting each other with snowballs. In the streets below them, the Polterhouse shops were still half open, and the furnitures were radiant in their holiday glory. Scrooge and his ghostly guide circled the tall spires as the steepless called good old people to the church of the Poor Chapel. And there below them lay Camden Town with its squalid streets of ugly frame houses. Of all these dwellings, the ghost selected the humblest for their visit. Scrooge, by now, past all surprises, recognized Bob Cratchit's wife, dressed in twice-turned gown, but brave in ribbons. Bruisley laying in the table, assisting her, was Linda Cratchit, second of her daughters, and also brave in ribbons. Also the master, Peter Cratchit, plunged a fork into a saucepan of potatoes, and now two smaller Cratchits, boy and girl, came tearing and screaming that outside the baker they had smelled a goose, known for their own. And now basking in luxury thought of sage onions, three more young Cratchits danced about the table. Then one more, the door opened.
Martha, we've got a goose. Wait till you see it, Martha.
Quiet, children, quiet. Why, bless your heart alive, Martha, my dear, how late you are. Merry Christmas to you.
Merry Christmas, Mother.
Merry Christmas.
How late you are, Martha.
Oh, we had a great deal of work to finish up last night, and we had to clear away this morning.
Well, never mind, so long as you're here now. Sit you down before the fire and have a warm. Lord bless you.
But where's Father?
He's been to church with Tiny Tim.
Oh.
They'll be along directly.
How is Tiny Tim, Mother? Any better at all?
Sometimes I think he is. And sometimes I think, dear God, if anything should happen to Tiny Tim, Tim should die.
Mother, you mustn't think of such a thing.
Oh, here they come.
Oh, Father and Tiny Tim.
Merry Christmas, everybody. Martha.
Merry Christmas, Father. And Tim.
Merry Christmas, Martha.
Merry Christmas.
And there was Bob Cratchit, with at least 3 feet of comforter exclusive of the fringe, hanging down before him, and his threadbare clothes darned up and brushed to look seasonably. Tiny Tim upon his shoulder, poor Tiny Tim, he carried a little crutch and had his limbs supported by an iron frame.
And how did little Tim behave in church, Bob?
Oh, I like church, Mother. Oh, they sing the nicest hymns. And the people were so kind to me. It was such fun riding home on Daddy's shoulder.
He behaved as good as gold, and better. Somehow he gets thoughtful, sitting by himself so much, and thinks the strangest things you've ever heard. He told me coming home that he hoped people saw him in church because he was lame, and it might be pleasant for them to remember on Christmas Day who made lame beggars walk and blind men see.
Tim, you darling.
Mother, the goose is ready.
The goose, Mother!
Mother, I'm hungry. The goose.
Oh, yes, children, all ready. Come, take your places. And wait your turn. There's plenty of stuffing and dressing and plum pudding for all of you.
Yay!
Now, Martha, you take care of Tiny Tim. That's right. And see that he eats plenty. He must get strong and well.
Now shall we say grace?
Yes, Bob.
Our Father, who art in heaven, we thank thee for the daily bread in which thy mercy thou dost give to us. Bless us this Christmas day. Keep us all together so that for many years to come we may unite here to do thy will and praise thy name. Amen.
Amen.
And now, my dears, with such a dinner, a toast. A Merry Christmas to us all, and God bless us.
God bless us.
God bless us and everyone.
And now to Mr. Scrooge. I'll give you a toast to Mr. Scrooge, the founder of the feast.
The founder of the feast, indeed, who pays you all of 15 shillings a week. I wish I had him here. I'd give him a piece of my mind to feast on, and I hope he'd have a good appetite for it.
Oh, my dear, the children, Christmas Day.
Well, it should be Christmas Day, I'm sure, on which one drinks to the health of such an odious, stingy, unfeeling man as Mr. Scrooge. You know he is, Bob. Nobody knows it better than you. Poor fellow.
My dear, Christmas Day.
Well, I'll drink his health for your sake and the day's, not for his. Long life to him, a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. I'm sure he'll be very merry and very happy, I have no doubt.
And I say, God bless him too, Mother. And everyone.
There was nothing of a high mark in all of this. There was not a handsome family, these Cratchits. They were not well dressed, their shoes were far from being waterproof, their clothes were scantily and had known, very likely, the inside of a pawnbroker's. But they were happy, grateful, pleased with one another, and content with the time. At last they faded. Scrooge had his eye upon them, and especially on Tiny Tim, until the last.
Spirit, tell me if Tiny Tim will live.
I see a vacant seat in a poor chimney corner, and a crutch without an owner, carefully preserved.
No, kind spirit. Say he will be spared. Say he will live.
If these shadows remain unaltered by the future, the child will die.
Many calls Scrooge made that night with the ghost of Christmas present. Now he stood upon a bleak and desert moor where monstrous masses of rude stone were cast about as though it were a burial place for giants. Down in the west, the setting sun had left a streak of fiery red which glared upon the desolation for an instant like a sullen eye, then was lost in the thick gloom of darkest night. A light shone from the window of a hut. Passing through the wall and mud of stone, they found a cheerful company assembled around a glowy fire, an old man and a woman with their children and their children's children, all decked out gaily in their holiday attire.
In this place, Ebenezer Scrooge the miners live, who labor in the bowels of the earth. Still they know me, do you hear?
The spirit did not tarry here, but bade Scrooge hold his robe, and passing on above the moor, they sped on whither. Not to see, to Scrooge's horror, looking back he saw the last of the land below him, where the waves breaking upon the frightful range of rocks. But built upon dismal reef and sunken stones, some leagues or so from shore, there stood a solitary lighthouse. Great heaps of seaweed clung to its base, and storm birds bore of the winds rose and fell. It was like the waves they skimmed. Again, the ghost sped above the dark and heaving sea, on and on, until the light of the ship they stood beside the helmsman at the wheel, the lookout in the bow. The men had the watch, dark closely figures in their own several stations.
Come.
Much they saw and far they went. In many places they visited, but always with a happy end. The spirits stood beside sick beds, and they were cheerful. On foreign lands they were close at home, by poverty, and it was rich. In almshouses, hospitals, and goals, where vain man in his little brief authority had not made fast the door and buried the spirits out. He left the blessing, it was long night. If were only a night, and it was strange, too, that while Scrooge remained unaltered in his outward form, the ghost grew older, clearly older.
My life upon this globe is very brief, Ebenezer. It ends tonight.
Tonight?
Tonight at midnight. Hark! The hour is come.
Oh, not yet, not yet. There are still more things I wish to learn.
These you will learn from still another spirit. Still another spirit, Ebenezer.
Scrooge looked about him for the ghost. It had vanished, and he found himself once more in his bed, in his dressing gown and his nightcap on his head. He heard the clock strike, and then he remembered the prediction of old Jacob Barley, and lifted up his eyes and beheld a solemn phantom, draped and hooded, coming towards him like mist along the ground. The spirit slowly, gravely, silently approached. In the very air through which it moved, it seemed to scatter gloom and misery.
I am the ghost of Christmas yet to come. Ebenezer Scrooge, I am about to show you the shadows of the things that have not happened, but will happen in the time before us.
Ghost of the future. I fear you more than any spectre I've seen. Lead on. Lead on. The night is waning fast, and it's precious time.
Scrooge followed in the shadow of its dress, which bore him up, he thought, and carried him along. And suddenly they were in a room which Scrooge seemed to remember having seen before, where a woman and a child were.
Oh, my son, my little son, Tiny Tim. I loved him so.
Mother dear, you mustn't. It's almost time for Father to be home. Don't let him see you crying.
Yes, Martha. He's late tonight. He walks slower than he used to, and yet I've known him to walk very fast indeed, with Tiny Tim on his shoulder.
So have I, Mother.
But he was light to carry. His father loved him so that it was no trouble at all. Bob!
Good evening, my dear.
You're late, Bob.
I'm sorry, my dear. I went to the churchyard today. I wish you could have gone with me. It would have done your heart good to see how sweet and green a place it is. But you'll see it often. I promised him. I promised Tiny Tim we'd walk there on a Sunday.
Oh, Bob. Bob.
It's God's will, my dear.
Oh, my son. My little son, Tiny Tim. I loved him so.
Scrooge tried to break through the shade that held him, to talk with Bob Cratchit, to speak some word of comfort, but the sleeves of the ghost of Christmas yet to come passed in front of him and shut the family from his view. And now they were in an obscure part of town where Scrooge had never been before. They were foul and narrow, the shops, houses wretched, and the people drunken, slip-holed, and ugly. The whole quarter reeked with crime, with filth and misery. Deep in the den, infamous resort, there was a low, burrowed, beetling pawn shop where iron, old rags, and bottles were bought, and there was an old chairwoman standing at the counter.
Undo my bundle, Joe.
That Scrooge didn't die of nothing. Catching that?
Don't be afraid. I ain't so fond of his company that I'd take a chance o' that. You may look through that shirt till your eyes ache and you won't find all in it. It's the best he had, and a fine one, too. They'd have wasted it if it hadn't been for me.
Would you call a wishing of it, Mrs. Dilmore?
Putting it on him to be buried in. Somebody was a fool enough to do it, but I took him off him again. If calico ain't good enough for such a purpose, it ain't good enough for anything. Can't look uglier than he did in that one. The old ore, eh? And he's a bad current small use of have from here's going.
That's the trust word you ever spoke, Mrs. Dilmore.
So this is the end of him, you see. He frightened everyone awake when he was alive, to profit us when he was dead.
The phantom spread its darkness robe before him for a moment like a wing, and withdrawing it revealed another place, a churchyard, walled in by houses, overrun by grass and weeds, choked up with too much burying, with fat, with reptile appetite, a worthy place. The spirit stood among the graves and pointed down to one, Scrooge crept towards it, trembling as he went, followed the finger, read upon the stone of the neglected grave his own name.
Ebenezer Scrooge.
Spirit. Spirit, am I? Am I the man who lay dead upon that bed?
The spirit pointed from the grave to him and back again, and the upper portion of his deep black garment was contracted for an instant in its fold as if it had inclined its head.
Ebenezer Scrooge.
And then Scrooge saw an alteration in the phantom's hood and dress. It shrank, collapsed, and dwindled into a bedpost. Yes, and the bedpost was his own. The bed was his own. The room was his own. Best and happiest of all, the time before him was his own. And make amends. Running to the window, he opened it. He put out the head, no fog, no mist. Clear, bright, jovial, stirring cold, cold piping for the blood to dance, golden sunlight, heavenly sky, sweet fresh air, merry bells. Oh, glorious, glorious.
Boy! What's today?
Huh? What's that, sir?
What day is it, my fine fellow?
Today? Why, it's Christmas Day!
Christmas Day? Christmas Day? Then I haven't missed it. Oh, the spirits have done it all in one night. All in one night. Oh, I don't know what to do. I'm as light as a feather. I'm as happy as an angel. I'm as merry as a schoolboy. A Merry Christmas to everyone. A Happy New Year. Happy New Year to all the world. Hop, hop, hello!
Next morning, Scrooge was early at his office. He went early for a reason. If he could only be the first to catch Bob Cratchit coming late. This was the one thing he had set his heart upon, and he did it. Yes, he did. The clock struck 9. No Bob. A quarter past. No Bob. Scrooge sat with his door wide open that he might see him come in. At last he came. His hat was off before he opened the door. His comforter, too. He was on his stool in a jiffy, driving away his pen as if he were trying to overtake 9 o'clock.
8 and 7 are 15. Carry the 1, 24. Carry the 2, 31 and 5 are 36.
Hello, you... Cratchit.
Yes, sir.
Cratchit. Step this way, Cratchit, if you please.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Cratchit, what do you mean coming in at this time of day?
I'm very sorry, sir. I'm behind my time.
You are? Yes, I think you are.
It's only once a year, Mr. Scrooge. It shall not be repeated. I was making rather merry yesterday, sir.
And I'll tell you what, my friend. I'm not going to stand this sort of thing any longer. And therefore, Bob Cratchit, I'm about to raise your salary.
Are you quite yourself, sir?
No, thank heaven, I'm not quite myself. Oh, Merry Christmas, Bob. Merry Christmas, my good fellow. A merrier Christmas than I've given you for many a year. I'll raise your salary, and we'll see what we can do for Tiny Tim and the rest of your family. We'll discuss over this very afternoon over a Christmas bowl of smoking bishop, Bob. Make up the fires. Make 'em up and buy another coal scuttle before you dot another I, Bob Cratchit.
And Scrooge was better than his word. He did it all infinitely more, and to Tiny Tim, who did not die, he was a second father. He became as good a friend, as good as a master, and as good a man as the good old city knew, or any other good old city town, and borrowed in the good old world. He had no farther intercourse with spirits, but lived upon the total abstinence principle. Even afterwards, and it was always said of him that he knew how to keep Christmas well. If any man alive possessed the knowledge, may that be truly said of us, and all of us. And so that Tiny Tim observed, God bless us, everyone. Our cast featured Joseph Hewitt as the narrator, Gavin Reinhardt as Scrooge, Ava Hooper as Bob Cratchit, Ava Christian as Christmas Past and Miss Cratchit, James Donaldson as Fred, Kat Eisnicker as Man, Robert, Boy and Boy of Street, Angelo Delguzzi as Ghost of Christmas Past, Ashlyn Newman as Jacob Marley and Martha, Elizabeth Barrow as Fezziwig and Girl, Nairobi Harmon as Belle and Chairwoman, Ezra Dennis as Tiny Tim and Ghost of Christmas Future. This was directed by student Angelo Delguzzi. We would like to thank Mr. Michael Miner and Mr. Bobby Zinsmeister for their work with sound. We would also like to thank Superintendent Dr. T.C. Chapelier, Assistant Superintendent John Belt, Principal Louis Retton, Vice Principal Keith Swearingen, Dave Moffat, our ICHS secretaries Lori Orban and Connie Hubler, and all other staff members who helped to make this production possible. We would like to give a final thank you to Mr. Zinsmeister for making it possible for our drama club to do productions such as this one.